Without a doubt, one of the best ways to fund the growth of your company is by running internal promotions that fund the next phase of growth. But what happens when you're ready for outside money? And how do you know if you're ready to work with an investor, or even what kind of an investor is right for you? Well, that's what we're going to cover in this episode of the Built to Grow podcast. So I know there's some business people, including most of the people on my board of directors, who will disagree with what I'm about to say. But I personally prefer to fund the majority of our growth in each of my companies internally, meaning that when we need money to grow, whether it's to hire more talent or to grow office space or to buy new technology or whatever it is, if your company's built right and you're not leaving a lot of money on the table, then the swiftest, fastest way to fund your growth is by internal promotions. But what about when you need external money for a bigger jump forward? Well, let's say you're ready to grow, but in order to scale properly, you need a cash infusion of maybe $10 million. And assuming you could prove your projections, most investors would say something like, hey, I'll give you maybe $1 million up front, and we expect as an investor X amount of growth in these three areas, 1, 2, 3, whatever those three areas are. And if you reach that level of growth within X time frame, let's call it a year, we'll release another $3 million. And we expect for that $3 million, X amount of growth in these areas. And if we reach that growth in X time frame, then we'll release another $3 million, and so on and so on and so on until they funded you the full $10 million. But what kind of investor should you look for? Are you going to pitch family and friends? Are you looking for smart money, meaning that the person or the group that is funding you also brings specific knowledge or relationships that they're going to leverage to help you scale? Or are you looking for an angel investor or venture capital money or an investment banker? Now, if you've never done this before, getting funded could be fucking confusing, and it's easy to get taken advantage of. So at the very least, you need to prepare so that you look like you know what's going on, and so that you start like this. I would start by writing down the answers to a few questions. First, what size investment are you looking for? Is it $200,000? Is it $1 million, $10 million, $30 million, or somewhere in between there? You got to know exactly what you're looking for. And then, who would be your perfect fit investor for you? Is it somebody who has contacts and fulfillment? Not only money, but contacts and fulfillment, or somebody with contacts and distribution? Or is it another business person who really just needs a big deduction on their taxes this year, so they're willing to make an investment in another company? And how much, if any, say, are you going to give them? Like, is that business, that investor going to have, which is called voting rights? Are you going to give them no voting rights, or are you going to give them a seat on your board of directors maybe, or a board of advisors? Or are they going to be a full advisor of yours? Or maybe they're going to be a partner with full voting rights? And how much are you planning to give them in return for their investment, right? Is it going to be their investment plus interest? Well, that's what most companies seek, that kind of simple arrangement, but most investors don't want that arrangement. Maybe you're going to give them a piece of the profits, or maybe you're going to give them equity in the sale if you sell. Investors are far more likely to invest if they're getting a little bit of interest, if they're getting a piece of the profits, and if they're getting a piece of something if you sell, right? So if you could coordinate something that gives all three of those things, that's going to be far more appealing for an investor. It's going to be less appealing for you, far more appealing for them. But what also exactly will you use that money for, right? You have to know that. Are you hiring a new C-suite? Are you buying a building? Are you scaling a proven marketing campaign? You got to list all that stuff out. And at the very least, you need to know what kind of stuff that you're going to put there, like answer all those questions. And then you need to be able to clearly and succinctly, and I cannot emphasize this enough, clearly and succinctly prove to somebody in a few minutes what you're building, what success your company has had so far that has set you up for a big growth spurt if you could get funded. You also want to be able to clearly say what successes you've had personally in the past that makes you able to handle that new level of growth in this company, and exactly how much you need to grow this year and also beyond, because every investor understands that you may need more money. If things go right, you may need more than that 1 million or 10 million or whatever. And you also have to know exactly what the money is going to be used for. You have to clearly be able to show somebody, what is this money going to be used for? Exactly what is it going to be used for and why. And you have to be able to sum up who your competitors are and how you're going to take their market share after you get an investment and not get squashed by the competitors. Because the last thing I, as an investor, would want is to give a cash infusion to a company just to just to help them grow to a level where they're on the radar for one of their competitors, and their competitor then just takes out all the assets that they have and squashes that company. That would be a waste of our money. But also, you have to clearly share with an investor what obstacles you're going to encounter. Well, that's something that most businesses avoid. As an investor, when a company can actually come out there and say, because I'm always going to ask, but if you come out there first and say, hey, these are the obstacles that we're going to encounter at each level of growth, and here's how we're going to solve them. Here's the people or the expert we're going to bring on. Here's the system we're going to use. Here's how we're going to at least hit that obstacle and then be ready to brainstorm and push through it, right? You also want to be able to clearly and succinctly state the relationships that you already have that you can leverage and the relationships that you're going to need to attain in order to reach your targets. And by the way, I've had people approach me with far less information than that and asking for funding. But I've also had people approach me with far, far, far more information, like a book of information. I'll tell you right now, the best way to keep the attention of anyone you're pitching is to keep it short and powerful and backed with substantiation so that they know that you've done all the research already, right? That's important. They need to know that you've done the research already so that when they put the money in, they could see a proven plan. And after you put some thought into those questions, here's what you need to know about some of the most common investor groups. Because there's a lot of investor groups out there that require different things. They bring different things to the table, and you got to make sure you're going for the right fit. Here, an investment banker is one of them, and they're going to take your idea and go out there and they're going to sell it for you. They'll pitch your idea to all their contacts, and they'll help you secure the funds that you need in exchange for a piece of the pie, right? They're going to want a piece of everything. On the other hand, there's venture capital firms, and they're going to fund you, but most likely they're going to want to bring in a proven team, or at least bring in some proven team members. Maybe they want to bring in a CEO or a COO or a CFO or a CMO, whatever it is, because that's going to give them a level of certainty that you'll end up reaching your goals and that they'll make their investment back plus a lot more. And most VCs are going to require an ownership in your company in exchange for lending you the money, right? So you need to know the intricacies of each one of these. But then you have what some entrepreneurs think is the easiest route. Most of the time it's simpler, but it's not easier, right? And that's an angel investor, which is usually much less formal than a VC. And it could be anyone from family and friends to crowdfunding to an actual angel firm. And most angel investors really do, at their heart, they want to support business growth. Like they're doing this because they want to help businesses grow. And also to get either a good return on their money, or they want convertible debt, or they want both, right? Another investor is an equity partner, and they'll usually cut you a check to be a partner in your company. The value here is that if you choose your partner correctly, they'll come with a lot of helpful knowledge and contacts and be highly motivated because they're your business partner. So they really do need to make sure you grow. Now, there's more kinds of investors than those, but those are the most common. And here's a really smart rule of thumb for any of them. If they're just investing money, then they should have no active interest in the company other than making interest on their investment. That's just my 2 cents there, but that's a good rule of thumb. But if they bring smart money or they bring relationships to the table that you could leverage, then you can bet pretty much anything that they're going to ask for a piece of the growth of the company. And they deserve it probably because they can really escalate your growth. Now, and that piece can be, the piece that you're giving them can be just a piece of the growth from the day they invest forward. It doesn't really need to be all the value that you've built up so far. So if you've built a $2 million company and your goal is to get it to 10, 15, 20, $30 million, it may not include the first few million that you've built up so far, right? And that would include all the value that you've built up prior to their cash infusion. Now, if you're growing fast and you need help figuring all this stuff out and you want to fund your own growth without giving away control, then go to my website and see if there's any spots in our consulting program. And while you're there, take a look at all the companies that have already been in the program, that are in there right now, who have scaled 100%, 200%, even 1,000% over the past few years, because businesses that are built to grow always grow. But those that were not specifically engineered to grow rarely grow, and they often hit plateaus. Now, I have a link that we'll put under this video that you'll see if you're part of our YouTube family. And if you're hearing this podcast on iTunes, then it's chrisguerrero.com, and then look on the top of the website for the consulting tab. And by the way, just answering the questions on that application is going to be very eye-opening for you. And it'll give you at least one new way, probably 2 or 3, that you can maximize your growth before any external investments are needed. And before you go, subscribe to this channel so you're first to get access to more videos like this. And tell me in the space below, what are the topics you like covered here? No matter what stage of growth you're at, we all need an unbiased review of what's working and also what might not be working anymore in our business. Because the greatest cause of stagnation in any company, the reason most companies hit plateaus in their growth, is because they fail to see the roadblocks that stop momentum in its tracks.